Okay, we're doing the 10,000 subscriber Q&A session. Thank you to all those that ask questions and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that you enjoy my work, and I'll continue to make videos in the future. Okay, let's see what we have. The first question is from Big Chungus. What do you like outside of maths? I like to listen to music. I got a lot of basic answers for this. I like to listen to music. I used to play a lot of music. And there are some video games that I like to play, but not really much anymore. I can't really say that I'm a gamer. But I do like the Soulsborne video games. They're pretty fun. It's Surge asks, were you ever interested in psychology? I do like psychology. I find it very interesting. Although I was pretty much one of those guys that was interested in everything in school. There was a few subjects I didn't care for, but for the most part, any of the sciences I was interested in. Krishna Anurag asks, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, how to study for long hours? I get tired easily. Well, you can't really study for too long. You know, there's no sense in sitting down for 6 hours straight and just studying. I mean, I don't think the human body is really built for that. So I would recommend breaking it up into pieces, like study for an hour, then take a break, then come back to it after a while, because it is important to take breaks. And eventually you can, get, several hours of studying in one day by doing that. Just don't do it all at once. Nick Guerrero asks, why do you walk the thorny path voluntarily, mortal? Well, okay. Very theatrical question. Well, somebody's got to, I guess. The Constructor Theorist asks, which school do you go to? I've mentioned this a couple times in my videos. I'd kind of like to keep some things private, because if people find out, well, originally, I think it started out as, people that I work with might find out who I am, or find out about my channel. But that was back when I had 200 subs. And actually, someone that I work with has discovered my channel, and she text messaged me. She's a friend of mine, and she texted me. She said, is this you? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. I guess now there's also the possibility that if people do find out specifically who I am, then they can, look up my email address, and then maybe I'll get some unwanted attention. I don't know. It's just, I think I'm entitled to some privacy. Fafa asks, why do you love math? I'm not really sure why I like math. I mean, originally it's just that it's a logical subject. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's also a difficult subject, and I like being able to do difficult things. It's one of those subjects where if you succeed in it, it makes you feel great. And part of me just wanted to see just how much math I could learn. Razor M asks, how much math do you need to know in order to solve complex problems? Do you really need to know all kinds of tricks, assumptions, and advanced theorems nobody knows? And how do we know what an answer would look like if math is not straightforward? The quickest answer to this question is just by doing a bunch of problems and seeing what other people have done and seeing that, okay, this is the accepted answer. I don't know, that may not be a very sufficient answer. But it really just comes down from experience. Reading books, seeing how theorems are proved, watching other people solve problems. It also helps to actually watch them do it as they solve, which is kind of harder to do. We do that in my graduate program. I get to see other people solve problems. Abdul Rahman asks, do you think that the pressure of 10,000 subs is going to make you struggle more or less as a struggling grad student? As a result, are you perhaps going to make your channel private, or do you think it will actually help you that the more content you upload, the more you're actually reviewing your math material yourself? Also, I remember you mentioned your school were desperate for grad students, and as someone struggling to get admission into grad school, and I didn't include the rest of it, but I do remember the rest of this question when I was looking through these. I think he was asking if he could apply to that school. So there's a couple of different questions here, so I'm going to be brief. Do I think the 10,000 subs will make me struggle more or less? Not really. I don't really feel pressure. Even if I had 1 million subs, I don't think it would put that much pressure on me. Will I make it private? Probably not, but we'll see. As far as my graduate school being desperate for grad students, that was really kind of situational because the year that I applied, COVID hit, no one was hiring anyone, and then eventually they got to the point where they started to want to hire people, and they kind of missed out on a year of new graduate students. So in that moment, they were really looking for graduate students, and they even waived the GRE requirement. So that specific year was a good year to apply, and that's what they were. I use the word desperate, but I don't really know what was going on at the time there. I just know that everyone kind of skipped a year because of COVID. So it's not that same situation now. Benji Chalo asks, or Shalou, I think I pronounced it wrong. He asks, I'm a student in my second year of computer science, and I recently took an interest in studying math. I know the two programs are sometimes closely related, so I consider switching, but would lose some progress. If I wanted to study mathematics at the graduate level, most schools only want students with bachelor degrees in math. Should I do the switch? Well, my bachelor degree was environmental science, so computer science is more closely related, so I don't think you have anything to worry about there. But, every program's different. It also depends on who applies that year. Whether or not you should study math at the graduate level kind of depends on where you want to go with your career. Computer science is a pretty good field to study. Whether or not to study, the only reason I think you should study math is if you truly enjoy the subject and it's what you want to do with certainty. Victor is bored asks, hi, I love your videos, thank you very much, and I'm a senior undergrad student and really struggling with analysis. Is there any online sources you suggest, or a Discord, or any way I can interact and study with others? Thanks, friend. I don't really have too much to say, I don't really have too much advice to give here. I guess, because I don't really know much about Discord. That might come as a shock, but I don't. You'll be surprised at how little I know about some of that stuff. I don't even really know what Snapchat is, to be honest with you. I'm not saying that's the same thing. It's just the scope of my ignorance is great. You're struggling with analysis. I would suggest, because I struggled with analysis too, Stack Exchange helps a lot, Math Stack Exchange, and knowing how to Google specific questions that are worded. You have to be careful with how you word them, but you can look up stuff like that. Online resources, there's a YouTube channel called Bright Side of Mathematics. He's by a German YouTuber. You might want to check him out. I thought that much of what he went over, specifically in analysis and measure theory, was really good, so that might help you. Matt C. asks, how did you know you were prepared for a PhD program? Coming from a smaller university, I often worry this. Are you really ever prepared for a PhD program? Well, I got a master's degree in math before I entered the program, so that was pretty good. But even with the master's, I still struggled. So how do you know if you're really prepared? I would say if you're well read on some of those basic core subjects. I probably would have read up on the material more before going into a program and practice some problems, just so I was familiar with the language. And also, you have to be self-disciplined. That's kind of a core necessity. As long as you're self-motivated and self-disciplined, that's probably the biggest thing. Will you ever take graduate courses? Oh, sorry, this question comes from Noise. Will you ever take graduate courses in harmonic analysis, functional analysis, and partial differential equations? I'll definitely, if it's offered, yes. Those subjects are pretty fun. Uncle Ben, the late great Uncle Ben, asks, when did you gain a passion for math, and how was your learning trajectory up to that point? Also, did you ever not like math? I'd say it kind of started it really took off in the 8th grade. When I was in grade school, I won't say I disliked math. I did like math. Math was like my easy course. Courses like English and writing, I wasn't really too good at that. I mean, I still worked really hard to get straight A's, but I had to work extra hard for stuff like that. With math, not so much. But up to that point, I was a straight A student in school because my dad pushed me really hard. And But math was the easy subject for me, and then 8th grade is when I really started to like it. And I was always looking forward to the next thing because math builds on itself. I took math proofs in college and didn't think I could really do the math beyond that, and then I switched majors, then got my degree, and then I decided I really wanted to go back into math, and that's when I got my master's degree. So that's kind of more or less my trajectory. Carlos Alberto Garzon Gutierrez, he asks, do you think it is a good idea to begin the PhD immediately after finishing undergrad? Only if you're for certain that that is exactly what you want to do. If you're uncertain, then no, not really. There needs to be a lot of soul searching first before you jump straight into a PhD program. Jupiter asks, are you ever at all interested in the applications of math, or do you just like to do math for the sake of doing math? I'm in Calc 3 right now, and I get to see applications for a lot of things I'm learning, which, number 1, neat, and 2, directly apply to what I'm studying. However, sometimes doing math for the sake of doing math is sometimes also nice because it gives math its magic, in my opinion. I definitely do math for the sake of doing math, but I also appreciate the applications, like figuring out the area under a curve. The fact that we can create an extremely complicated looking curve and still get the exact area, I thought was amazing. But sometimes you do math and it's just like, how is this worthwhile, Because you can talk about distances between... If you study metric spaces and topological spaces, sometimes you read some of that stuff and you're like, why would anyone want to know this? Sasha asks, what's a niche math subject / research field that you're interested in? Something most people have never heard of. A niche math subject. I'm not entirely sure how niche fractal geometry is, but I really like fractals and Hausdorff dimensions. That's part of what my research was about when I wrote my master's thesis. Rajarshi Samantha. Man, I'm butchering some people's names, I'm sorry. Currently, I'm doing master's in statistics, and I want to pursue my PhD in probabilistic models and Bayesian inference. I know it's different from math, but probability is a core part of measure theory, so I want to know what are scopes in this area, and is it a good decision to go for mathematical stat rather than going for applied part of statistics? Oh, it kind of depends on what you want to do afterwards. If you truly love I've said this before, but if you truly love the subject, then you should pursue the thing that you love, I think. But you also have to consider, the job prospects afterwards, and I'm not entirely sure, which one of these two is most employable. Although, to be honest, I don't really think it matters too much. I think what really matters is who you know. Networking is one of those things that I think they should emphasize more, because it's better to be a C student and know a ton of people than to be an A student and be an island and know no one. Shahar Mazrev asks, what is your favorite proof one in algebra and one in analysis? Well, my favorite proof in analysis is probably the Borel-Cantelli lemma. That proof that's inside of it, I did it on the channel a while back. And in algebra, I don't really think I have one. It's been a while since I looked at those proofs. But most of them come from the problems that were given to us to study for the qualifying exams. Generally speaking, I like the easy proofs. The easy proofs are the ones I like the most. Amrit Kumar Patel asks, my question is, have you ever prepared for Olympiads and participated in Olympiads? Do you have any experience related to it? Short answer, no. Olympiads, the IMO, International Math Olympiad, is a competition for high school students, and my high school was small potatoes. I look back on it, I do look at some of them from occasionally, just to see if I could do them, and there's some that I can do, but it's kind of a different beast to deal with. MKDS Leon asks, what's your thought process when you encounter a grad qualifier level math question, and for lack of better terminology, what does your internal universe of math look like? How do you aesthetically internally represent and engage with math concepts in your head? How do I approach a graduate qualifier problem? I look at the problem, and I take note of everything that is given to me. And then I try and think back, okay, what were some of the concepts that we covered in class? And I usually try and do this beforehand. And if I know, okay, maybe uniform equiintegrability shows up here, and then I'll take note of that and maybe write it off to the side. I essentially kind of write down everything that I know, and then I try and go by definitions. So I go by definitions, and I try and identify big concepts that may show up, like Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. And then hopefully, when I write down all the pieces of the puzzle, something will jump out at me that is familiar from what I did back in my graduate level course. Okay, so we have 2 questions here. I don't know why I included them on the same slide, but here they are. Prime Hedgehog 101 asks, what made you learn or lean towards pure math over applied math? And Nikita Demidov asks, what is your favorite fractal? And she congratulates me. Thank you, Nikita. So what made me lean toward pure math? To be honest, I didn't really know there was a difference between the two. I just thought there was mathematics. And I kind of just took whatever was offered to me, and it just so happened to be pure math. And then when I discovered that there was a difference, I had pretty much already had the pure math background, and I decided to stick with it because it is kind of in my spirit to do, math for the sake of doing math. And then my favorite fractal, I guess technically the Cantor set is a fractal, so I like it, but I also like the Sierpinski triangle. It's a fun one to draw. ML Guy asks, as a theoretical physics PhD graduate many moons ago, I studied quite a bit of mathematics, more applied, like PDEs and nonlinear systems. But what I never had a chance to discuss with a math PhD student, which of the Millennium Prize problems would be next to fall. I am assuming Riemann hypothesis given the false dawns and quite a bit of activity in the popular math space. But also being someone that studied fluids and Navier-Stokes, I could see that just popping out. Ooh, I don't really know too much about these Olympiad problems. I don't really think people are working on them, to be honest. I think they're too scary. I know Yiting Zhang, a Chinese mathematician. I think he works at the University of New Hampshire, maybe? Although he may have moved. He recently published a paper that kind of nudged us in the direction of Riemann hypothesis. I hope to see it proved in my lifetime, but I don't think it will be. What would be even more amazing if I could solve it, but I struggle with Egorov's theorem, so I'll probably let someone else do it. Bonky asks, I love your channel. Thank you for making high-level math accessible and somewhat understandable. I do my best. Thank you, Bonky. My question is, what is your method of understanding math material when you don't understand it at first? Thanks for the lovely content. You're welcome. My method for understanding math material that I don't well, to be honest, usually when I read a math book that's really hard and above my head, I'll just read it and pretend like I know what I'm doing. I just fake it till I make it. I write it down and I look at it, okay, I don't get it, so let me read it again, and I don't get it, and then I just move on. And then when I'm done, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll pick up a book on the same subject and just go through it again. Because that's what I did with real analysis, and I'm not saying that I completely understand real analysis inside and out, but I did notice that once I read like 4 books on the stupid subject, and then when I sit in a class and I see one do problems up at the board, it just all comes together. Comes from repeated exposure. Our Piano asks, how do you balance memorization versus intuition? Do you do a bunch of problems to internalize the information? I'm hoping to major in math, so it would be really helpful to know. It is very important to read the subject ahead of time. It's very important to listen to the instructor and take notes. But the absolute most 100% important thing to do is problems. I actually posed myself a problem, or a challenge I should say, last year where I was going to do 10,000 problems in real analysis. You've heard the expression that 10,000 hours makes a professional or an expert. I said, well, I don't know about 10,000 hours, but I can do 10,000 problems, both easy and hard, and mostly in between. So I started it, and I got about 700 last year. I just recently started it, so it's going to take a while. But I think I could get like 1,000 done easy, and then I'll be 10% done. But hopefully in the near future, I'll eventually hit that 10,000 mark. CRM0993 asks, I have just qualified as a medical doctor, but one enjoys studying mathematics in his spare time. Congratulations on the medical doctor qualification. That's a pretty big accomplishment. What would you suggest starting with, my friend? Just beginner stuff. Well, I'm not sure how much math medical doctors need, but if you've had college algebra, I would start with calculus. Stewart has a book on calculus, so I would start there. Just go from chapter 1 to chapter 17, or however many chapters are in that book. Dosco Roll asks, what do you think about high-level math as a PhD? Is it like a science degree, useful for jobs, / has interesting research opportunities, or it could be thought of as liberal arts like philosophy? It's it's definitely more sciencey, but you could argue that there is some philosophy involved there, but it's mostly science. I would say 70% science, 30% philosophy at most. But because there's a lot of problems where you have to sit down and think about okay, what does it really mean to be a continuous function? What does it really mean to be a distance between 2 points? So it does help you train to think abstractly. Average Balkanian. Shouldn't it just be Balkan? I'm not sure. Was there a point either in high school, undergrad, or anything like that where you wanted to just give up on math? If yes, how did you overcome it? Was there ever a point in high school? No. I really liked math in high school. Undergrad? Yes. My second year as an undergrad, I was getting D's on homework, and I was trying really hard, and I just couldn't do it. I kept getting D's, and that was breaking my spirit. And I switched majors because of it. And then when I graduated, I was like, no, I want to do math again. So the master's program was kind of me proving to myself that I could do it. So how did I overcome it? Just willpower. I had the drive. I had the desire to do it. And so I did it. Spectre Lex asks, how do you keep on going with a problem that you're getting nowhere with? I often get demoralized quickly when I can't even think of what to try, and sometimes it feels as if you just have to wait for the answer to randomly pop into your head and get anywhere. Wondering if you've ever had a similar situation where a problem seems impossible to start or resists all attempts of solving it, and how did you deal with it? Keep up the good work, by the way. I always look forward to your uploads. Thank you. How do you solve a problem that you can't solve? There's no shame in Googling, and there's also no shame in asking for help. And sometimes it's hard to find someone to ask help from. And to be honest, it just takes patience. If you're determined not to do any of those things, try and reduce the problem to simple examples and see what you can do with that. And then maybe with due time, the answer will emerge. I think Isaac Newton had a quote where he said, the only reason I'm able to see so far is because I stand on the shoulders of giants. So find your nearest giant and ask him for help. Sam Sanchez asks, do you struggle with proofs of obvious results? Definitely. And there may be problems where, your colleagues, other grad students, they can answer those problems because it's obvious to them but not you. But just know that there's stuff that's obvious to you that's not obvious to them. So it is kind of relative. It's based on background. So Lucas MB asks, tell us something about your private life. I used to play guitar a lot. I really like AC/DC, so I played a lot of their songs. Varun Shrivastava. I really butchered that, I'm sorry. Your views on pure mathematicians mocking applied mathematicians. Well, that's a two-way street, right? So the stereotype is that pure math people like to mock applied math people in that, first off, they believe that they're smarter than applied math people, or at the very least, they're better at mathematics than the applied math group. But also, by the same token, the applied math people think that pure math people live in la-la land, and that all of the math that we use is kind of nonsensical or pointless. It's like there's no applications for this, and most likely they're right that there is no application for it. And if there is, it won't be for another 400 years. Budav Labak. How do you develop mathematical intuition? There are so many proofs that use these beautiful creative arguments, and I was wondering, is it all just experience and reading through a lot of other clever people's work, or is there a method for coming up with these creative arguments that deal with abstract topics? It really is just kind of repeated exposure and problem solving. The more problems you solve, you internalize that information, and then when you look at a problem, it's there. You can retrieve it, and then maybe that will help you approach something. But no, there is no one method that suits everything, obviously. Anthony Tam asks, favorite result from algebra? Mine is Hilbert's Nostellensatz. I was reading that in the algebra book the other day, and to be honest, I don't really think I have a favorite result from algebra. I do like the subject of Galois theory and finite fields. Like field theory as a whole, I find very interesting. So, favorite result from field theory? Nothing's really jumping out at me. It's been a while since I reviewed my algebra. But I would say that all of field theory is my favorite favorite result. MK asks, what is the structure of an American PhD program? How long in years do you study to get up to speed in order to do research? Is the PhD a monograph or article-based? How are PhD students paid? Pick and choose from those. What is the structure? Well, it depends on the university. Every university is different. How long in years does it take me to study to get up to speed? Usually the first year is they get you up to speed. And then after that, you can take topics courses and then shop around for an instructor. And then usually by the shopping period is over, that first year, you're kind of prepared to actually hit the ground running and do research. So where I do research at, 3 years is the shortest. 4 years is average. And then 5 years really should be the maximum. So somewhere in there. X Baldy asks, how did your journey into mathematics begin? It really kind of goes back to 8th grade when I took Algebra 1. I just really liked the subject and I wanted to see what was at the bottom of the rabbit hole that is mathematics. And to be honest, there is no bottom. It just starts to network, and becomes a horrible web of different subjects that you can study. Aditya Mugdal, I'm sorry, I'm butchering these names. I need to get good at a bunch of variational calculus to solve from 4th order PDEs, but I'm a material science grad student. How do I start, or where do I start? Also, if you had to go back to the beginning, would you still do math PhD? I probably still would do a math PhD, but I would do it different so that it'd be done by now instead of where I'm at. Because technically I could have been done. How would I recommend solving 4th order PDEs? I mean, I never took PDE, so I'm not really the person to ask. I would start with calculus, work my way up all through Calc 3, and then I would start with ODEs and then get a good book on PDEs. I think that's probably your best bet. Elias Garavi asks, what looks good for a PhD? Application in math, especially since doing research as an undergrad is challenging. Doing research at the undergrad level is challenging because you're not really experienced in doing research. And even I'm not that experienced in doing research either. Contacting a professor that does research and working with him is probably your best bet. Dat Harpist asks, do you personally think math was created or discovered? Oh, it's a debate, whether or not it is created or discovered. I mean, I view mathematics more as an application of human logic. It's really just like it's pushing human beings' ability to think logically. So, created or discovered? I would probably lean more towards creation, maybe. Because I do see it as like how far we can push the human mind at this point. Saad Banala asks, advice for getting a PhD and what are the skills other than the math that we will need? Other than the math, you need to be self-disciplined. If you're not self-disciplined, then things are just going to overwhelm you. And fortunately, it does get better with age. Like the older you get, the more you can manage stuff. Watermelons asks, how many hours do you work per week? TA, RA, research, homework, class study, everything. Work per week, I probably get somewhere between 20 to 40 hours a week. I pretty much go in, teach on the days I teach, do some homework, do some research. I don't really do research, unfortunately, because I'm kind of starting out. And until I pass that one qualifier, I can do research. But I would say it's probably somewhere between 20 and 40. What? ? Asks. My question is, what is the scopes of pure mathematics in USA? I am from Nepal studying bachelor's in science. Physical includes physics and math. I am planning to come to USA after my bachelor's degree. I'm confused which one I should choose as I love both subjects, but I am more good in math. So please suggest me one. Again, it kind of depends on what you want to do with the degree and who you want to meet and how you want to network and do all that stuff. So if you truly love mathematics, then I would probably suggest you that one, but it's not really a question that I can answer. David asks, thoughts on Spivak calculus as a primary for a first real analysis course? I don't really know I've heard the name Spivak, but I don't know the book and I don't know what's in it. Red7 asks, do you use any combinatorics in analysis? Me personally, no, but that doesn't mean that combinatorics doesn't show up in analysis, and I'm sure it does. I remember I was given a homework problem on it once, but I didn't do it. Yeah, I hear the word combinatorics, and that just scares me. I don't know much about combinatorics. William Angelo Gonzalez asks, how will you explain Galois theory to a beginner in mathematics? That is very difficult, because Galois theory is not very easy to understand. Because you pretty much need to have a background in somewhat in field theory first before you even talk about Galois theory. I don't know. I'm not sure how to do that. That's kind of a really big task. So go through group theory, ring theory, field theory, and then do some Galois theory. Creamy Nell asks, have you ever considered a career in finance? It's funny you ask that because, yes, I kind of want to see if I can do it. I don't really know anyone in the world of finance. But if I did know someone in the world of finance, I would definitely knock on their door and tell them who I am.